Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us. We are back with another AIME Live. This one is so special, not just to me, but to so many women in our community. We have Melinda Wilner from UWM, Maria Fregosi from Homepoint Financial for a special chat. We're really excited to be talking about all of the amazing things that women are doing in our space, not just in the mortgage industry, but in the wholesale channel specifically. And we have two of the best and brightest here joining us. So Melinda, first with you, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Katie. Appreciate your time.
Maria, we are also so excited for you to be here. You and I had the chance to chat briefly about 6 months ago, and some of the conversations that we were having that really stuck in my head and resonated were about stepping up and owning the conversation that you're in and being proud of the position that you have. I would love to hear just a little bit more about your story, how you got to your position at Homepoint, and what sort of shaped those values for you.
Sure. Thanks, Katie. Yeah, I enjoyed that conversation as well. It's always great to talk to such accomplished women. So I'm also looking forward to this conversation today. But yeah, my background right now, I'm the Chief Investment Officer at Homepoint, but I'm really proud that I was one of the founding members of Homepoint. So we started with really just a small team with a vision for what Homepoint could be. And, you know, it takes a lot of courage and to be courageous to go out and start a company like Homepoint, small start, and this is where we are today. But if I really look back on my career, I started my career in investment banking and really had no vision of being in the mortgage industry at all. But through my investment banking career, I was exposed to mortgage originators. That's where I met Willie Newman, who's the CEO of Homepoint. And I really got pulled into the mortgage industry, and I got pulled in for a lot of reasons, but probably the number one is I love the complexity of the mortgage business, all the pieces and parts, the fact that it has interest rate components and all the different customers, whether they're our broker customers, our borrower customers, or our investor customers. So making sure we're having to solve all of their problems and make all of them happy. And then, you know, throughout my career, I was able to continue to sort of step into new and different roles within the mortgage industry. I started up a whole loan trading function when I was at ABN AMRO Mortgage. And here at Homepoint, I've really served in almost every role from the day we started.
That's incredible. And honestly, mortgage, but also banking, not a space that you typically see a ton of women and women that kind of rise to those leadership positions. How did you navigate those conversations early on to eventually find yourself in the position that you are at starting Homepoint with Willie and the rest of the team over there?
Yeah, so what I really focused on early in my career was trying to be an expert in sort of a unique aspect of the market. So where that really served me quite well was focusing in on mortgage securitization. So I focused on what was a very technical part of the mortgage business. And if you can really become an expert at something, people don't care if you're a man or a woman or purple or green. They need to talk to you, and you can add value to the conversation. So I think that still holds true today. That if you can really become expert at something, especially something that's a little different than other people, you're going to be part of that conversation and brought to the table. And I would say the last part of that is I never expected that people would treat me any different. I always expected to have a voice at the table. And I think I had the confidence to be able to sit and give my opinions, sometimes when asked, sometimes not when asked.
Melinda, from your side, you have a lot of very strong personalities over there at UWM as we've gotten to know the leadership team. How do you approach these conversations, being one of the only female leaders at a company that's now gone public? I mean, you guys are massive and you're leading the way, and not just leading in aspects that we typically see a lot of women in our space in marketing and communications. You're running operations for the largest wholesale lender in America. How do you approach those conversations? And are you taking a similar approach to what Maria is describing of just expecting to be listened to and expecting to be heard?
Very much. In fact, she made me smile as I was talking about that, as she was talking about that. But and I think it starts early on. I often get asked about early mentors, and my father was one of those. And I think a lot how you grow up, and do you have a voice in the house, and do you have people around you that really push. But similar to her, like there's never been the expectation that I wouldn't be heard at the table. And hey, I think I think you said it right. It's like, competency will always win, whether it's man, woman, whatever it is. So if you're an expert at something and you add value to any conversation, you should, and I found normally will be asked to the table. So yes, very similar situation. We do have, we have a lot of women here. We have a lot of women in leadership here. So it's, I haven't really come across that issue of not feeling like I'm being heard, but much the same way. Sometimes it's solicited and sometimes it's not, but it's when it's not solicited, sometimes that I feel is even more important, the ability to speak up, like whether you have an idea to make something better or whether something's going wrong, like it's your responsibility to speak up as a leader.
And I think that's such an interesting way to look at it. We get a lot of questions on how do I find the confidence to say certain things, or how do I find the right timing? It's your responsibility. Like Melinda, you really hit on something interesting there. As a leader and as somebody who's trying to make an organization better, even if you're not leading at the very top, it's also just your role as a part of being a team member within the organization to hold everybody accountable and to make the team better every day. Melinda, how are you deploying some of those leadership styles with the rest of your team? Because you have both men and women that report directly to you that don't always receive information the same way, depending on who it's coming from. So How are you approaching those conversations?
Yeah, we're very communicative, but one of the big things about here, and I think the ability to make people feel really safe that they can give their ideas is number one. We are big fans here. We say it often, challenge the why. Nobody is above asking a question. Anybody can come to me or to Matt, our CEO, if you have a question on why we're doing something or an idea on how to do something different. So I think it's a lot of cultural thing and making sure that it's a safe place. So at UWM, we're also big fans of trying things. Like we're not afraid, hey, if something doesn't work out very well, that idea, okay, great, start again. It's never like, gosh, that was a really bad idea. What were you thinking? So when you have a culture at a company of challenging the why and bringing ideas and getting better without that like fear of, oh my goodness, what if they think I'm dumb, or what if that's the wrong idea? It just doesn't happen here. And that's what it really takes to really get people to voice their opinions and to bring challenges up to leadership.
It ties in so well, ironically, with the whole theme, I think, for Women's History Month. I'm seeing all over social media, it's the hashtag choose to challenge, right? Where it's not being afraid to speak up, knowing that it's not only a good thing, but it could wind up being a great thing, right? It's not something to be afraid of. It could lead to something really, really important, a change that's really necessary. And having the confidence to be able to do that and start those conversations is really important. Maria, I want to ask you, so we have a lot of people, we've recently started a mentorship program here at AIME. We're really excited to have that roll out as part of our Ignite training program that's just bringing people from outside of the mortgage industry in, training them on industry roles, and then helping place them within the broker community. And a big part of that is the mentor program. We find it to be so important to make sure that support and that structure, that culture that Melinda was referencing is available through mentorship, both at your own company, but also sometimes even more importantly, outside of your own company. Did you have any mentors when you were getting started? And if so, who were they?
Yeah, I doubt anyone can rise to any level of an organization without having had mentors throughout their career. So, I was fortunate to have numerous mentors. And, just to tie a little bit into what Melinda was saying, one of the things that those mentors really helped me with was sort of to create my own path. So to think of ideas as I was going along and then try and, drive my career my own way. And then what I used those mentors for was often to brainstorm. So going to them and, saying, is this a good idea? What if I do this way? But early on in my career, I had a mentor at ABN AMRO who I really wanted to start up this new business division. And in fact, I was home on maternity leave. And I had a little time on my hands when the baby was sleeping. So I wrote up a business plan on how I thought that we could really, I could add a lot of value both to the mortgage business and to the security side of the business. And I remember I called up my mentor from maternity leave, and he was like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be resting or something. And I said, I have this plan. Let me send it to you. And what he did for me is he sent it to about 50 people within the organization. And so when I got back from maternity leave, I went and met with all those 50 people and ended up, starting my own division, building that into a really profitable business for the organization. So that would never have been possible without someone who was willing to open some doors for me and get me in touch with the right people.
That's incredible. And I love that every part of what you're talking about continues to go back to adding value, right? Being confident in your skill set, adding value. People are going to want to participate in those conversations. They're going to want to listen to what you have to say if you're approaching it from that place. That's amazing. Melinda, you briefly mentioned your father was a mentor for you. Is there anybody else in your career that's really helped shape and guide and get you to the position that you're in today?
Yeah, no, I think the earliest one after my dad, of course, because he was with me when I was born, but would be my husband. And, my husband, just such a great support person to push outside of the box. And I think, and I was this way for certain, I think I still see it with a lot of young women and certainly men too, is, don't be afraid of going outside of the box. When a new role comes up, sometimes people will have that hesitation of like, oh my goodness, like, are you sure? Like, what if I'm not so good at it? And my husband was very good about pushing forward on that. But then, to this day, and been with Matt Ishbia, our CEO here at UWM for the last 10 years, and gigantic mentor to me. I've learned so much from him over those 10 years on just attitude and positivity, and such a culture of accountability and just a good competitive nature. And he's been a dramatic influence in my life, certainly how I got here as well, but also just pushing me to be a better worker here, a better leader here, a better mother at home, just a better person all around. So he's been a very key component.
There's so many incredible leaders in our industry and in our channel specifically. I see it every day, from brokers that are leading their own organizations or leading within their communities, for all of our lending partners, all of our vendor partners. We're seeing more and more over the last couple of years, this trend of more women in leadership roles in the mortgage space, right? We're looking at some numbers early on that if for our partners specifically, we've got somewhere between 35 and 40% of the leaders in our space and the partners that we work with are women, which is, I think from what I've heard and seen from the past is much different than where it was, 10 or 15 years ago. Melinda, I'd love to hear your opinion on why it's so important for us to have women in leadership positions, and what kind of different perspective and value we're able to bring and offer to organizations.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head with perspective. I mean, the more diversified you can get, whether it's man or woman or just personality types, whatever it is, to just bring a different perspective to things, like how I might approach something could be different than somebody else. How I might internalize something or how I might hear something could be very different too. So the more value add people that you can have at the table, the better. Just really sharing those different perspectives. I do think I think women make phenomenal leaders. I think they overall do a really, really great job. But always having that perspective, like, it's easy to kind of work alone and just make decisions. But what you find is when you collaborate with everybody, that outcome is so much better.
Yeah, Maria, I know that's something that's super important over at Homepoint. Phil and Willie and I have all had conversations about how it's so critical, not just at Homepoint, but also for the mortgage industry in general, to have more representation. It's, it was a huge part of where our Spark and Ignite initiatives came from, right? Wanting more women, more people from different backgrounds in positions to be able to communicate and educate consumers. Can you speak a little bit to your perspective on that and the culture that you guys are trying to drive at Homepoint, and also within the broker community overall?
Yeah, sure. So very much like Melinda, we believe deeply in diversity of thought. It's one of our key culture stakes is diversity and inclusion. So that's very important to make sure that you have that representation. But I think what's so interesting to see the women really starting to rise up in the mortgage industry into these leadership roles and owning their own brokerages, which, you know, we're certainly very excited about. It feels a little bit like, you know, it's about time, because women for sure have always been one of the major decision makers when it comes to buying a home. You know, it's just by the fact, you know, you only need to watch House Hunters to understand that, that, you know, the women have a lot of influence there. So if their decision is really around buying the house, setting up the home in many cases, shouldn't they be involved in the financing and the home buying decision? And they certainly are. And I think one of the things that has allowed women to rise up is, you know, we can actually better understand some of their concerns and some of the issues they're going to have through the home buying process and that financing process.
Yeah, I'm looking over here. We pulled some stats earlier today just to have a better understanding of what the overall market looked like. And there are more single female home buyers right now than there are single male home buyers, which I think is such an interesting, I was one of them, right? A couple of years ago, I bought my first house. I remember sitting down with the loan officer at the time, and he was like, wait, where's your husband? I don't have a husband. Well, where's your dad? No, I'm buying it myself. Like, I got it. Don't worry. And I think it's so important that we remember that the face of who's buying homes is not what it was 20 years ago. The face of who's leading organizations isn't what it was 20 years ago either. You know, I find myself very lucky in that by the time I got to the industry, there was already a huge shift in swing into what the expectation was and the types of people that were sitting around the table. So I only ever saw that as something that was needed and necessary. It was never something that I saw people trying to overcome, right? I'm almost 5 years into the industry. So 5 years ago, we'd already seen a massive shift, especially from people who have been in it for their entire careers that have seen a very different landscape and environment. So I want to get both of y'all's opinions on what we can do to continue pushing this trend forward. How do we support other women? How do we help men support other women? We get that question a lot. We've got a lot of men in the broker community that are huge advocates for our WMN group and for the female brokers in our channel. They're constantly asking, what can I do? How can I do more? So Maria, I want to start with you. What can we be doing to help bring even more people, creating more seats at the table?
Yeah, so I think one of it really starts at, you know, hiring and promoting from within. So we're very focused right now at Homepoint on doing career pathing, bringing new people into the industry, training them. We have something that we call the Futures Program, where, you know, we bring people in, train them on the mortgage industry. And that really allows us to bring in more of a diverse set. So you're not looking for people that you know or that have specific experience. So that's one of the ways that I think really helps. And then I also think it really just helps to make sure when you're thinking about promoting or you're thinking about hiring, that you make sure you have a diverse set of candidates. It doesn't mean that you're going to hire, you know, based only on diversity, because no one wants to be hired for that reason. What you want to be hired for is that you're the absolute best person for the job, but make sure you have enough people to be able to actually make that decision in the most appropriate way. So that's something we've also been really focused on, just making sure that any position that we're going to fill, we're making sure we're looking at everyone. And then, you know, partnering with you at AIME has been really important for us to be able to, you know, provide leadership and financial incentives to really help drive, you know, women-owned brokerages, which we think is a fantastic effort and a great development in the industry.
We're very excited about that. That Spark and Ignite are both passion projects of mine that I've been itching to get my hands on for the last couple of years. So the fact that we were all, I mean, really with Homepoint and UWM, right, as our first founding funding partners, if you will, to be able to work on that with both of these groups to help bring more awareness to those additional perspectives that are just needed in our space. To the end of the day, we want to make sure that when we say brokers are better, we mean it. And we think the best way to do that is to make sure they're representative and reflective of who buyers are and what consumers need, and making sure that they feel seen and heard when they're going through the home buying process. Melinda, I want to hear the same thing from you. How can we bring, I've heard for a long time you have to take the chair, right? Take it away from somebody else at the table. But really recently it's pivoting that conversation to, you don't need to take somebody else's chair. We just need to make room for another one. So what ways would you suggest we continue to do that and continue down this path?
Yeah, well put. I love that. And I think Maria hit on a couple of key topics there. So one of them, making sure that you're a desirable place to work, right? So increasing that candidate pool. We do push diversity and inclusion, and Be You Yourself. Be You Here is a big initiative for us. When you have a very big pool of candidates, like, yes, we're out for the best hire of them all, competent. But I think from a leadership perspective, really pulling forward people that might be a little bit resistant. So what we do here, we always have, like, for any leader, you can be a team leader, you can be an SVP, a VP, like, who is your second hand? Like, who are you bringing up to rise to that next level? And are you mentoring them? And are you having those conversations early? Are you talking about their goals? Are you talking about their progress? How do you expose them to the things that they're going to need to be able to hit that goal? So as I think it's very important to really find those hidden talents. I think especially with women can sometimes be a little bit less confident in skills. So my favorite thing is going to somebody and being like, oh my gosh, like, did you raise your hand for this leadership position? And they'll respond with like, no, I don't know that I'd be good at it. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like, are you kidding? You're a leader on the team already. Everybody loves you. You communicate so well. You always take the reins when your leader is out, and just giving people the push when you really know your team and you know their goals. And it's really great to be able to unleash the talent and to allow people to do things that they never even thought they could do before. I think it's one of the most wonderful things as a leader to walk away from. But I love, Katie, what you said. It's like, hey, it's not out to replace anybody. It's hey, do a great job, and a spot will open up for you at the table. So don't go into it with, hey, I have something to prove. It's just go into it. Don't expect anything out of it. Work hard, execute on things, hold yourself accountable, and be really great at what you do. And success usually follows from there.
It's that constant need or desire to add value without expectation of return, right? I know both of your organizations live and breathe that every single day. We try to do the same thing here at AIME. And eventually it is going to come back, right? Doing the right thing, bringing good people up, bringing good people around you. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point. Yeah. We have a couple of minutes left. So I do want to give both of y'all a chance to just, for the women that are sitting there saying, that struggling with that imposter syndrome, right? I don't know if I can do it. I'm not sure if I'm the right person. There's probably somebody else out there that's better fit than I am. I'm already struggling with balance at home. I mean, there are all these things that come up in conversations every single day, stopping women from taking that step forward and leaning into more leadership roles and opportunities. What one piece of advice would you share with them? Something that you can start doing today. Hearing this advice from Melinda and from Maria, stop what you're doing, do this, and go implement it. What would you tell them? Melinda, we can start with you.
Yeah, just try it. Don't look so far into the future of like, oh, what if I want to get married one day? What if I want to have kids? I'm like, okay, and what? You can always try something, step out of your box, and what you'll find is you're usually a pretty good fit for it. And if you're not, okay, you move on to something different, right? So don't ever let get in your head, like, what if I'm not good at something? Try it. Somebody thinks you're great at it. Otherwise you wouldn't get the role in the first place. Don't limit yourself. Don't think too far ahead in the future. And this stuff is not permanent. If you go into a role and you find you don't really love it, no big deal. Great. Go find a different role.
That's amazing. Maria, what advice would you give to the women who are watching this?
So I completely agree with what Melinda said about just trying it. And I want to emphasize that I think now is a fantastic time to do that. We're in such a unique environment with everybody working from home that I really think, flex time is here, and it's here to stay. And that's something that's, really important for women with them trying to juggle all these different roles. So if there was a time that you thought there weren't enough hours in the day for you to be able to take, a larger role or a different role, now's the time. Because I think organizations are now embracing that. They're embracing that, you can do your job at any hours and frankly from anywhere. So now if you want to try something, do it, put your name forth. or come up with your own path or idea on the way you could accomplish something more in your career today.
And our industry in particular is so ripe for that. When we look at the broker community and the broker channel, consumers need to be helped at all hours of the day, but not necessarily consistently all day, every day, right? So the ability to drop your kids off at school or to be involved in other initiatives or projects, having more flexibility day to day. We've talked to a lot of our Ignite candidates on why they've applied and why they want to enter the industry, and over and over and over again, for the women in particular, it's the ability to be a little more flexible, to be able to work from your phone a lot of the time. It's a huge benefit to being in the wholesale space for sure. Both of y'all, thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited to have you. For anybody watching, if you don't know about our WMN group on Facebook, definitely we'll drop the link below, but for sure, take a look. We've got close to 3,000 members now. We just started it a year ago, and we've already hit almost 3,000 members. We have almost 6,000 conversations happening on a monthly basis, so it's very engaging. Tons of great advice, very similar to everything that Melinda and Maria have shared with us today. We also do our Women's Growth Series every Monday, so there will be constantly content and information available just for you that's focused on things that are both unique to women, but also just unique to our channel that we want to grow and get better. Because as you both mentioned, a lot of it's less about who you are and what you look like and more about the value that you're bringing to the conversation. So thank you both so much for joining us. We'll definitely have to have y'all back very soon.
Thanks for having me, Katie. Appreciate it.